A 3-second text can ruin 6 hours of your day. But the text isn't 6 hours long. So what happened during the other 5 hours, 59 minutes and 57 seconds? That's the part only you have power over. Let this video help you find that power. A text message takes perhaps 3 seconds to read. So if it ruins the next 6 hours, here's a fascinating question. What happened during the other 5 hours, 59 minutes and 57 seconds? Because the other person wasn't continuously sending the message. We were. We replayed it, interpreted it, predicted what would happen next, imagined what they meant, had conversations with them in our head, perhaps defended ourselves against things they hadn't even said. The original message may have lasted 3 seconds, but we turned it into a 6-hour experience. And that's useful to understand, because that's the part we have some power over. Let's jump straight into this, even though you may initially resist the answer. You received a message you weren't expecting. Something in it triggered a bad feeling. And while you may have absolutely no control over what somebody else has written, you are the only person who can take responsibility for what happens inside you next. That isn't blame, it's power. Because if the other person has complete control over your emotional state, you have to wait for them to do something before you can feel better. Apologize, change their mind, explain themselves, send another text, agree with you, come back. What if they don't? Do they get your whole Saturday? That's what I want to investigate. The premise I work from is that what happens outside us continually gives us information about the relationship we're having within ourselves. So rather than seeing the text simply as something that's happened to me, I can ask, what is this showing me? What has this interrupted? What did I expect to happen? And what am I now predicting will happen instead? Because very often, that's where the pain escalates. Consider some ordinary messages. I can't make it today. I didn't like the way you spoke to me. I want to cancel my order. Your payment didn't go through. I need this information by tomorrow or it won't work. I can't look after the kids after all. They're completely different situations. But what happens inside us can be remarkably similar. Disappointment, anger, frustration, fear, rejection, powerlessness. Something was supposed to happen one way, and suddenly reality appears to be moving another way. This is where I think something really important happens. The text tells you what has happened now. Your mind immediately starts telling you what it means next. I can't make it today becomes, he doesn't want to see me. I want to cancel my order becomes, I've lost the income. Your payment didn't go through becomes, I'm in financial trouble. I can't look after the kids becomes, now my entire day is destroyed. Notice the jump. Something happened. Then we created a future from it. And because that imagined future creates a real emotional response in the body, it can feel as though the future has already happened. It hasn't. That's the moment I want you to catch. Not because the original problem isn't real, but because the next chapter hasn't been written yet. And that's where perception becomes incredibly powerful. There may be another arrangement, another customer, another conversation, another opportunity, another solution, another understanding, or simply another way of experiencing what has happened. But if I immediately declare, this has ruined everything, I've mentally closed the door before I've discovered what's behind it. That's why I think unexpected messages can be such powerful mirrors. They reveal where we had unconsciously decided how reality was supposed to unfold. Something has contradicted the script, and the nervous system says, no, this wasn't the plan. So rather than immediately trying to change the outside, I'd start there. What exactly did I think was supposed to happen, and what am I afraid will happen now? That's often far more revealing than the text itself. I highly recommend my decision-making compass video because I explore this feeling mechanism in more detail. I'll put the link in the description below. But for now, understand that the bad feeling is information. It doesn't necessarily tell you what the other person's message means. It tells you something has happened inside you. And before doing anything, I'd work with that. Because I've done this myself. I've allowed one remark in a text message to derail me for 4 or 5 hours. But when I look back, the message didn't continue for 4 or 5 hours. My relationship with it did. It derailed me for exactly as long as I couldn't make peace with what had happened. And that's the part I've learned I have influence over. Not by pretending I feel good, not by immediately finding a positive affirmation, not by distracting myself with work, and not necessarily by soothing the whole thing away with a cup of tea and a piece of cake. Although I'm not completely against the cake. The first job is much simpler. Feel what happened. Where is it in my body? What is the feeling? Anger? Fear? Disappointment? Rejection? Powerlessness? Let it be there without immediately trying to solve it. Breathe. Slow everything down. And then ask, what am I making this mean? That question is enormous, because I've observed that beneath many of our most difficult emotional reactions is something connected to freedom. Something happened, and suddenly I don't feel free. I don't feel in control. I'm trapped by somebody else's decision. I needed that money. I needed them to come. I needed them to agree. I needed them to speak differently. I needed today to happen according to my plan. And now something outside me appears to have taken control of my experience. That's where the real struggle often begins. For me, freedom has always been extraordinarily important. I spent 25 years in the corporate world, and I've also spent many years self-employed. Being self-employed can easily consume more hours than a 9-to-5 job. But the freedom to decide when I work, how I work, and with whom, continues to feel incredibly valuable to me. But I've also realized something. We don't have to run our own business to experience autonomy. Even the idea that we're working for somebody else can be questioned. Whatever environment I'm in, I'm still experiencing my life. I'm either using that environment to work with myself, or I'm spending 8 hours a day fighting with my experience. That's why I've also made a video about using the 8 hours you're already spending in your job to improve your life without necessarily changing the job. I'll put the link in the description below. The same principle applies here. The text arrived. It's here. Now, how do I use it? Let's take some examples. You receive, I want to cancel my order. And immediately you think, but I've spent months getting this sale. I need that income. Absolutely. Feel the disappointment. But then separate what happened from what you're predicting. The order has been cancelled. That's the information. I won't make the money I need is a prediction. My work was wasted is an interpretation. There won't be another customer is a prediction. I'm back to square one is another interpretation. Now I can ask a completely different question. What remains available? Could I ask why they cancelled? Could their feedback improve my offer? Is there another customer I've neglected while concentrating on this one? Did I place so much emotional weight on one transaction that I've just discovered something valuable about my relationship with money? Or perhaps none of those things. Perhaps the only useful response today is, that's interesting. I can't yet see what this changes, so I'm not going to write the ending before it arrives. That's a very different state. Or perhaps the text says, I didn't like the way you spoke to me. And immediately, how dare they? They speak terribly to me. I didn't do anything wrong. Again, stop. Feel it. Then ask, what exactly am I reacting to? Perhaps what they said is useful. Perhaps I did speak badly. Fantastic. Now I've received information that can improve my relationships. Perhaps I didn't. Then I don't have to accept their interpretation as truth. Or perhaps their words trigger something because I recognize a much deeper pattern. Maybe I speak to myself that disrespectfully. Maybe their message has made visible language I've become so accustomed to hearing internally that I barely notice it anymore. Or perhaps this isn't about self-talk at all. Perhaps I'm finally seeing that I repeatedly allow somebody to communicate with me in a way I no longer want to participate in. Excellent. That's clarity too. The mirror isn't there to tell you that the other person is right. It's there to help you see what's happening. Then you decide what you want to do with the information. That's the distinction. Taking responsibility for your experience doesn't mean taking responsibility for everybody else's behavior. It means refusing to hand them responsibility for your entire internal world. So what do you actually do when that text arrives? Before replying, put the phone down. Name the feeling. I'm angry. I'm frightened. I'm disappointed. I feel rejected. I feel powerless. Then breathe slowly and let yourself experience it without immediately doing anything about it. When the intensity begins to settle, ask 3 questions. What actually happened? Not what might happen tomorrow. What happened? What am I making it mean? This is where you'll find the story. And finally, what is still possible from here? Don't demand an immediate positive answer. You may genuinely not know. That's okay. Sometimes the most powerful position is simply, I don't know what this means yet. That sentence leaves the door open, because you always have at least 2 possibilities. You can decide that what has happened has already determined what happens next. Or you can allow that there may be information, opportunities, and outcomes you simply cannot see from where you're standing. That's not pretending everything is wonderful. It's refusing to declare a disaster before you have the evidence. So, what's the takeaway? A text you don't like is information. It tells you something has happened differently from what you expected, wanted, or assumed. Your emotional reaction is information too. Pay attention to it. But don't automatically let either one write the rest of your day. Feel what you're feeling. Name it. Breathe. Ask what you're making the message mean. Separate what actually happened from the future you're predicting. And then ask, what is still possible? You don't have to know why something happened. You don't have to immediately declare that the universe has a better plan. You don't even have to like it. You can simply leave enough space to acknowledge, I don't know what this means yet. And perhaps that's where your freedom begins. Because ultimately, letting one text ruin your entire day means that for those hours, something outside you has been given authority over the quality of your internal experience. The text may have taken 3 seconds to read. Don't spend the next 6 hours continuing to send it to yourself. What came at you has already arrived. Now the conversation is happening within you. Don't spend the whole day fighting with yourself. Your perception matters. You can perceive everything has gone wrong, or you can leave enough space for something has changed. Let's see what becomes possible now. And pay particular attention if you feel resistance to that idea. Maybe you're thinking, I'm sick of this psychobabble. Okay, don't fight that either. Investigate it. What specifically am I rejecting? What about this feels offensive, unrealistic, or untrue to me? That's information. Or perhaps you're thinking, but I just lost an order I've worked towards for months. I need that income. Absolutely, that matters. But the effort you've invested hasn't disappeared from your life. The skills you developed haven't disappeared. The conversations haven't disappeared. The information you've gathered hasn't disappeared. Only the outcome you expected has changed. You don't yet know what all that investment will produce. Or perhaps, I didn't like the way they spoke to me. Then don't automatically accept their words. Investigate them. Is there truth in what they said? Is there something useful? Is it touching an insecurity? Is it showing you how you speak to yourself? Or is it simply showing you a boundary you're now ready to establish? All of those give you somewhere powerful to go. And that's ultimately what I want you to take from this. The message is information. The feeling is information. The story you build around them is optional. Your day is still yours, and the experience you have from this moment forward will be shaped enormously by what you decide this moment means.